All these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
eager
whole
to
vibe
enter
across
a long trade.
Howdy crypto friends, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, BCH, GBTC, we're going to look at it all. We have a tightening range that is forming on the daily time frame, and we can see that with our low of the dump is our support, the high of the bounce is resistance, and now the bulls are trying to form their higher low and they're forming a tightening range. As I pointed out in previous videos, we're watching the hourly, keep saying the hourly, it's the RSI downtrend resistance on the RSI and the uptrend support, and it has us in an equilibrium. You can see that the RSI is making an equilibrium as well, and the price is not. And the reason, that's why we have that bullish divergence where RSI formed a higher low, the price formed a lower low. So I'm watching for how we're going to break from this tightening move, and I do believe that how this daily equilibrium breaks is going to dictate how the RSI is going to break. So the last bounce that we had to change the trend and give us the bounce on the weekly to the lower high occurred off of an equilibrium. But the difference here is that it occurred, number one, still holding weekly support before it, and number two, the pattern took 11 days to play out. So low, high, higher low, lower high, higher low, 11 days. This one's not going to take 11 days to play out. It's going to be a shorter one. And we've seen short equilibriums get breaks in the past without a whole lot of follow through. So I am a bit skeptical that, just saying if we get the bull break, then hey, bulls win. But it could be a kind of scenario where if we get the bull break, you enter and then you put a stop loss at break even and, you have nothing to worry about and maybe you nail the bottom. So we'll see how this equilibrium breaks. If it's a bear break, we're looking right back down at 57.77. If it's a bull break, that means we're going to be looking at daily exponential resistances and the previous lower high of 6,829. So clear levels to be watching. And we haven't seen 2 green days in a row in over a week. So this is likely to break. We could see another 2 days in here at most, I would say. So I would say at Saturday at the latest, but I would probably expect a break before then. And we can see on the 4-hour time frame just tightening up. A lot of downside. Again, this trading environment, look at the 15-minute time frame. These wicks and these fake outs, it is extremely difficult. At this point, I would only be using the 4-hour time frame, which also even has some wicks, but also just the daily time frame. Zoom out, there is less irrational behavior because that irrational behavior, we get a bull break with no follow through and then a bear break with no follow through, and then we end up roughly in the same area. So the daily chart doesn't look erratic, but the shorter term time frames do. And if you're trading off those shorter term time frames and support and resistance levels, it's going to knock you out left and right and knock you around while it is, just being all wild and rambunctious. So again, I'm not even looking at the hourly time frame right now. Maybe I'll check in and see what it looks like with the exponential moving averages, but 4-hour and daily is all I need. I would expect a lower high to form on this 4-hour chart and the range to continue to tighten through tomorrow. So not expecting any kind of break unless some news came out and led to a potential break. We're still seeing the shorts continue to sell off, and the shorts are covering. So that's a little bit encouraging. The fact that we're not seeing significant short positions at this point. It's just been selling off day after day. The shorts are the lowest that they've been since June 10th. And we look back and say, what's the chart doing on June 10th for Bitcoin when the price or when the shorts were that low? And that was right here on that all-out dump. So doesn't necessarily mean the bulls are going to show up. But it is noteworthy that, we're not seeing shorts build positions, but that also leads to the point that we might not see any kind of short squeeze on a bull break. It's going to be up to bull volume to push this momentum and follow through with that bounce. So we'll see one day at a time, but at least we have a nice clear pattern on the daily chart. GBTC, so this is the Bitcoin trust, and this is the only way that you can play Bitcoin in the market right now directly, and you have to pay a premium. So that means that you're overpaying for what the cost of a Bitcoin is. And it's been a very high premium in the past. And the reason you have to do that is, again, because you don't have exposure any other way. So now this premium is eroding because you can see this all-out dump the last few days, keeping in mind that every candlestick here is only representing about 8 hours of trading, and it's skipping 16 hours that Bitcoin is still trading. But we can see that over the last 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we have all-out dumped. And we have not dumped on Bitcoin. So that tells us that the premium is eroding and it's not, the correlation to the price of Bitcoin at this point. So I'm watching this RSI. This RSI on the daily time frame is already down at 23. So if Bitcoin's going to break bearish from here, that means that this daily RSI is going to get down into the teens, and it's already the lowest point that it's been since back in 2015. So multiple year lows and looking for a climax. And we closed weak, so I don't believe that's there yet, but I'm looking for a climax bounce on GBTC. And I did day trade it today, and I will day trade it again if there's another opportunity. But it gave me a little heads up here where we saw a big significant bounce because, again, we got more oversold. Look at the 5-minute RSI. It was in single digits. So we saw this bounce. I saw a healthy consolidation. And at that point, Bitcoin had broken out. Let's go to the same time frame. So 11 a.m. on the 5-minute. So here's where Bitcoin had broken out, and it was consolidating right here. So healthy consolidation was forming, and during that consolidation, that's when GBTC was doing this. I entered a position, and I was going to use 862 as my stop. I got in at 869 with a couple nice positions, and I was looking for continuation, and it was a very small risk trade because I would have exited if this low broke. And we got that follow through, and we broke to a higher high at 1135. When did Bitcoin hit the higher high? That didn't happen until 1145. So there was essentially a 10-minute heads up before the bulls even did anything on this consolidation where GBTC moved and saw continuation. So I'm not necessarily saying that, the GBTC move had any reason to do with why Bitcoin did see continuation, but I'm going to constantly be watching this correlation from here on out because there are going to be good opportunities where we can play these oversold bounces. Bitcoin, or I should say GBTC, the bounce that we had was from 834, and we made our way up in less than an hour up to 895. So that's a 6% bounce in less than an hour where Bitcoin obviously was not moving 6%. So there is opportunity to be had there, and especially with I have more capital in my stock trading account, so that opens the world up to crypto to my stock trading account. And again, that's what we're waiting for on ETFs and ways to get these general investors and larger money to get in. We need to have less hurdles for brokerages, and we're just waiting for brokerages to start putting out their own crypto trading platforms. But anyways, I'm watching GBTC. ETH, still weak. Lower low on the daily. That's very notable. It's the weakest of the three right now. So we had the low of 421.10. We dropped to a lower low only by 98 cents, so not significant. But it's much less of an equilibrium pattern because of that fact. We could bounce, and we'll look for a lower high compared to the top of the bounce of 473.27. But you can just see that it's not the same setup. It's a weaker setup. So definitely making note of that. You look at the 4-hour time frame, we pulled back way more than Bitcoin did, all the way down to the low. That would have been like if Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame had dropped hundreds of dollars to bring us right back down to the low of 577, when in reality, we held that level by over $200. So ETH, very weak, still trying to bounce, but we will look for a lower high. Litecoin has a beautiful clear pattern, and the daily time frame, I'm still in a partial position here, and I'm just waiting for this daily pattern to play out. We have our low of the dump, and we have the high of the bounce, and we have our higher low trying to form right now. So anything under 84.49 is a lower high, but you can tell there's a lot more power here on Litecoin in order to break its resistance than we are seeing on Ethereum. And that's because that LTC BTC chart had a 14 daily RSI, and it's finally seeing a bounce where Litecoin's seeing a little bit of upside strength versus Bitcoin. So I'm watching the tight range on Litecoin. I do believe if we get a bull break, it'll break first. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on. And I will exit if we lose this support established at 74.85. And again, 4-hour time frame, more likely than not to set a lower high because we've gone one straight shot, 4 or 5 green candles, likely to see a lower high and need to continue to consolidate before we see a break of this range. So again, I don't anticipate a break until tomorrow at the earliest, but it is possible to happen overnight because anything's possible in the crypto world. BCH, also in equilibrium, also a little bit weaker comparatively. So low, high of the bounce, higher low, and we're trying to make our way to the middle of that range. And our support right now is 684.43, resistance is 780.80. So again, you look at the 4-hour time frame, it's tightening up. We've been bouncing for 5 hours, and you can see just the angle of the bounce comparing these two. You can see Litecoin had a stronger bounce than BCH did. It's more leveled out, and it's still battling exponential resistance. So we will anticipate a lower high on the 4-hour and a continued tightening range into tomorrow. Daily time frame and 4-hour time frame has the most clear picture of things, and that changes again every day. I'll say, what is the time frame that has the most clear setup for me? That's the time frame I'm focusing and watching and making my decisions based off of today. So that's something to note, and we'll see how it plays out. So back to story time. We ended off last time with the adventures of the hot springs and Conundrum Hot Springs in Colorado. So from there, moved on to Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park in Colorado. And this is a wild one where it's just a straight shot down into this canyon, and there's a nice river going through it that's just been cutting away at this for 100 bajillion years. And it's so notable because it's not the size and scope of the Grand Canyon, but in terms of descent, how fast it drops, it is the deepest, it's the steepest crevice either in the world or the country. Either way, it's remarkable. And you can see all just the different layers of time on how these rocks formed, and then there's the water cutting through it all for so long, and that gives you perspective. You know, the amount of time that it takes for water to do that to rock, pretty wild. So different, you know, viewpoints and trees and crevices and shadows. Really cool spot. Not a big park, not a lot of places to camp. Obviously, you're not going down in there. There's some trails that will, you know, hug along the side that are pretty cool for good views, but that's one that you can visit in a day or two and see most of it. Whereas Yellowstone, you know, I've gone 4 times and I could go another 4 times and still have plenty to see. So national parks definitely vary in terms of size and things you can do and rules and all of it. But that was a cool one to skip through. Silverton, Colorado. This is just a little small town. This actually might be Ouray, but either Ouray or Silverton up in the mountains. And these roads just driving through these little towns are so much fun. And, you know, so interesting. If you get some good music, it's the kind of road trip where driving is fun. And I just would break it up so I'm not driving more than, I would try and keep it to 4 hours or less. So I was stopping frequently and I wasn't getting, you know, sick of the car. So Silverton is known for its fireworks. So I went there for July 4th. And again, it's just this small little mountain town, but they go all out with their fireworks. And I have no idea how much money they spend, but like that's their thing. So that was an incredible display that they put on. And it's also an old miner town, and there's a train that goes through the mountains running through Silverton. Pretty cool spot. Just another little spot to pass through. And these are the roads that you're driving through. And it's just, you know, hard to keep your eyes on the road with so much going on all around you, but it is incredible in Colorado. And there's always rivers nearby where you can pull off and look to fill up some water or fill up your cooler, keep things ice cold. So then we got to my favorite spot, top 3 favorite spots of the road trip, Ice Lake Basin in Colorado. I believe it's near Telluride. This spot was insanity. You hike from about 9,000 to 12,000 feet up, and these are wildflowers all over the place. It was in early July, I believe. And so a really sweet trail getting up there, and you know there's a lake up at the top, and the flowers are all over the place. And then you get to the top, and it's just like, what? That's insanity. It's crystal clear blue water because of the mineral runoff. It's, you know, deep. You can't see the bottom. The mountains, you're surrounded in this, you know, like it's a cathedral around you of just encompassed huge rock. And you're there. I went there to camp, and I was there by myself by about, you know, 6 o'clock p.m. So there's a little river that comes in here, a little creek. And I'm there by myself, and I'm hanging out with one of those marmots that's living under a rock, probably right where I'm taking this picture or just behind me. And it is just like, I can't explain the feeling, but that's as close as to heaven or whatever you want to say as I've ever been in terms of spirituality. And, you know, the stars were my cathedral ceiling, and it was just incredible. So from there, again, flowers are insane, popping off in July. And I just explored around for 2 days and said, oh, what's it look like from over here? And there's my tent set up, and again, just surrounded the entire way around by huge peaks like this. So I said, well, I'm going to climb up some of those because I got nothing to do today but hang out at this spot, and ended up jumping in. It was ice cold, but this is a view from higher up. And then there's that, you know, you hike up. So it's a drop off in a valley down in there, and hiked up a little bit further. There's ice melting. So still in July, still melting the ice, but that's where some of the runoff is coming from in the water. And then just getting as high as I can to get a sweet view of multiple lakes. So Ice Lake Basin, Colorado, go there, and you can camp wherever you want. I might have had to get a permit, but it's just no campsites, and it's wide open. above the tree line, definitely exposed. The storm did come out of nowhere from over these rocks. And fortunately, I was right next to my tent, so I just hopped in it. But it poured, and I think it even got a little hail, where the storms come out of nowhere because there is no tree line or anything to slow them down. So that's something you definitely need to be aware of. And a little fun fact, the last partner I had fairly recently, this is the background of my computer right now, and the background of her computer was this exact picture, but in the winter, and she took it maybe 100 feet to the right over there. But the exact same backdrop on her computer and my computer from the same spot that we visited. I think it was within a year or two of each other. But that was a wild coincidence that blew my mind. And that's that. Ice Lake Basin, Colorado. Go there. And Telluride, that's also, this is right near the Conundrum Hot Springs. It's within a few hours of it. And I learned about this place from someone in Conundrum Hot Springs who told me to go here. So I hope you all have a good rest of your night. Continue to do good things out there. We'll see how this daily equilibrium breaks. Probably not tonight, but we'll keep an eye on it just in case. Keep an eye on the RSI. Keep an eye on GBTC and a potential oversold bounce play. And for those of you that are just getting into stocks, keep an eye on WEED and CGC tomorrow. We're getting primed for a solid bounce opportunity in that name. I'm going to shut up now.